Hello, everybody. This is the lecture for responses to the environment. Um, Organisms respond in a variety of ways to abiotic factors. So, an abiotic factor is something that's not living. So, something like sunlight, wind, temperature, uh, nutrient levels, something like that. And organisms respond in different ways to that. They respond physiologically, anatomically, and behaviorally. So let's think about physiological responses, right? So when you get cold, you might get goosebumps. Now, what is actually happening is a tiny little muscle at the base of each hair is getting bigger or contracting, and you get kind of poofy. Now, if you had more fur, you would get poofy, kind of like this bird, right? And what it does is it traps more air next to your skin and it actually can make you warmer or lose less heat. We just don't really have that much fur anymore as humans, so it doesn't really do anything for us. But another example of this is acclimation. Okay, so this is like a temporary your body changes physiologically. So an example of this is a high altitude climber, right? So let's say you're going to Mount Everest and you want to climb Mount Everest. You don't just show up at Mount Everest, fly to Mount Everest one day and climb up, right? You actually have to go there and stay at 14,000 feet for a while and then go up to 15,000 feet, 16, up until you're at the base camp, which is, I think, somewhere around like 20,000 feet or something. And then you take progressive hikes up the mountain and back down the mountain to get your body used to it. Now, what's actually happening, how your body is getting used to that, is your body is creating more red blood cells. Those red blood cells transport oxygen, and it allows you to transport more oxygen and take more oxygen out of the air with every breath. So organisms are limited to the amount of acclimation, right? So above 26,000 feet, so the top 3,000 feet of Everest are above that, right? It's at 29 some thousand feet, forget how tall it is. But our bodies just can't deal with that, right? So we can't just acclimate ourselves up to as high as we want to go in the atmosphere. Our bodies won't do that. Above this 26,000 feet, your lungs slowly fill up with liquid and you drown on dry land, basically. Same kind of thing. You're not going to find a polar bear in the Sahara Desert. Now, a little bit different is an anatomical response. So this is like a change in outward appearance. So all the physiological things were maybe internal. Anatomical then is external. So it might be a change in body shape, structure, color, or whatever, right? So these two bunnies are actually the same species. It's a snowshoe hare in the summer and then in the winter. And you can see it obviously gets way more fur because these things live up northern Canada, up into the Arctic. So it's an definite outward appearance that you can see easily. So it's, in response to temperature, but also a little bit camouflage so they can blend in the snow a lot better. Now, some anatomical responses, though, are not reversible, right? So there's this interesting story of showing Japanese people pre-World War II were averaged 5'1", and that's pretty short. That's shorter than the average American. But people born after the war, they were averaging at 5'8", and Americans, what we see now, are averaging 5'9". So this is men and women. So that stereotypical thing that Japanese people are shorter than the American body type is not really. It might be true a little bit, but it's really not that true. And what this was in response to was the diet of a Japanese person was a lot different pre-World War II. Post-World War II, they really increased their nutrition and were able to get a lot more nutrients during their childhood and able to grow taller, basically. You know, some plants like this plant is at the top of a mountain in Hawaii where they have this continuous trade wind that in this case is blowing from left to right, and this tree is growing not what you would think of like a normal tree, kind of off to the side. And even if that wind were to stop, which it's not going to, it's going to not grow back to normal. So not all anatomical responses are reversible. Then lastly, there's behavioral responses. This is basically a change in behavior due to the environment, due to abiotic conditions. So, think about just putting on a coat when it gets cold. A rainstorm come by and starts dumping rain. What do? You go inside, right? For maybe a more natural example is nocturnal desert animals. So the deserts are full of animals. You just don't see them during the day because it's too hot. They all come out at night, and the desert plants will even open their flowers at night because they know that that's where all the animals are going to be, when all the animals are going to be. So, plants will sometimes change the orientation of their leaves so they're picking up the most amount of sun. And all these things, you don't really think of plants as having behavior, but they definitely do. All these things are changing their behavior so that in response to some stimulus, so that they can then, increase their own health benefits or whatever. All right, that one was short and sweet. So thank you for listening, and see y'all later.